All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first Parent University. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about our one-to-one program at West Oak campus. Join us. I have Daisy Carrera, Kurt Preble, and Brandon Peterson. To join us with the presentation, Daisy's going to be providing some translation throughout our slides. So we'll, in past fashion, what we typically do is we'll alternate slides to ensure that we are accommodating all families in English and Spanish to ensure that everybody has the information that they needed. And we'll have some Q&A at the end of our session today.
Buenas tardes, esta es nuestra presentación primera de nuestra serie de Universidad de Padres. Ahora estaremos hablando sobre nuestro programa de Chromebook 1 a 1, que significa el estudiante con su dispositivo. Con nosotros tenemos al señor Preble, al señor Peterson y al señor Hansen, que van a dar la presentación de hoy.
All right, so let me share my screen and get our presentation started here. Okie dokie. All right, so we already know this is our one-to-one Chromebook program. We just did our announcement, so might as well switch to today's presentation itinerary. So essentially, we're just going to go over a little bit, some one-to-one updates as we transition into this upcoming, as we are in this upcoming school year, to talk a little bit about how it's slightly changing this current year. Expectations, responsibilities for those of our families that their students are heading into 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade that have not had a regular occurrence of taking devices home, just some expectations and student responsibility just to be aware of. How Chromebooks are utilized for academics, quite often they're used all the time, but we'll share a little bit about that. How we manage our student devices just for our family's sake, and just to be aware of how our our technology department is managing student devices. Different communication methods and how our students can communicate with their teachers. And then some frequently asked questions just to kind of answer a lot of questions that families may have. And of course, we'll have some Q&A at the end.
En la agenda de la presentación de hoy vamos a dar actualizaciones sobre el programa que tenemos en el Campus West Oak. Vamos a hablar sobre expectativas y responsabilidades de los estudiantes que tienen con los dispositivos. También académicamente, cómo los estudiantes usan los Chromebooks en el entorno educativo, la administración de los dispositivos, comunicaciones y los métodos que usamos para que los estudiantes se comuniquen con sus maestros y maestras. Y luego vamos a terminar con preguntas frecuentes o comunes que luego tienen nuestros padres.
Perfect. So to start off the night, we're going to talk about our one-to-one Chromebook updates. So in typical fashion, our 5th through 8th grade students always, as we start the school year, they get issued out their student Chromebooks that are issued out. That happened yesterday, which is fantastic. But one nuance for this current year that we're going to continue on is that even though our 3rd and 4th grade, and quite frankly, all of our other grades, each student does have a one-to-one device, but in the past, these students have had them in carts. So this current school year, our 3rd and 4th grade will be starting off with carts to acclimate to this school year. But on Monday, September 19th, our students are in 3rd and 4th grade will be taking their devices home. And this will be our inaugural year that we'll move forward with our West Oak campus of all students taking their devices home to and from school, being part of our one-to-one program.
So, actualizaciones de los estudiantes de 5º a 8º grado llevarán sus Chromebooks a casa, empezando ayer, que fue martes 23, se los llevaron ayer. Un cambio que tenemos este año es que los estudiantes de 3er y 4º grado comenzarán a llevar sus Chromebooks para la casa y luego para atrás a la escuela, empezando el lunes 19 de septiembre. Es un cambio que en el pasado no hemos hecho, entonces este va a ser el primer año anual en que vamos a empezar que los estudiantes del 3er y 4º grado lleven sus Chromebooks a casa y las regresen.
Awesome. So one thing when it comes to our student devices, the devices that are handed out to our kids, is that first and foremost, the devices are there for student learning and instructional practices. And one of the things we want to ensure with our families is just some expectations, responsibilities, to make sure that our students are, always have their devices charged and are bringing to class, but just how that looks at our buildings. So for the devices that are issued to our students, we want to ensure that all students are always keeping their Chromebooks within their dedicated case. If you look at this image from last year, all of our students that have their devices in these dedicated cases that are there that follows them. And essentially, they'll have the ability to not only keep their charger within them. So as every student receives a Chromebook, they receive a charger and bag, which we see here. And with each bag, they have a few pockets and definitely could fit their Chromebook charger. It's great to have because, as we know, these devices are only a year old, but as every device, the more they continue to use, and millions of tabs that our students, I'm sure, have open and they're working on multiple different tasks, that batteries do drain. So we want to make sure that our students do keep their, not only charge a device, but also just bring their device, their chargers to and from school. We want to make sure that our students are not loaning out their charger or their Chromebooks to their friends, as even though that your student might be responsible to ensure that their devices are charged and they have it there, and they would assume that they'll get their device, their charger back. Sometimes that doesn't happen too often, and we want to make sure that your student has their charger with them as always. We want to make sure that when you're, whether at school or at home or wherever we're at, we want to make sure our students are putting their Chromebooks in a secured location. Most commonly, when you're obviously not on the floor, not somewhere where you cannot have eyes on it, essentially. So every household is a little bit different, but for my own children, I always make sure that I have the students, I'm sorry, my children charging their devices in a common location, so I know that where they are in the morning and also at the evening, that they're in a safe spot and cannot be accidentally broken or lost or whatever. In addition to that, these are pretty common digital citizenship practices that we teach our students, but never share your login or password with other friends. And most important, and another thing that's very important, is tampering and modifying, and it is strictly prohibited. So that's students that are trying to potentially bypass the content filter that's applied to each device, or anything that's on the device to get around that. So we want to make sure that our students have a quality device at their fingertips that's always there, but also to ensure that they're charged, they're bringing their devices to and from school, and we're keeping away from any sort of tampering or modifications, just to ensure that your students' content filter follows them wherever they go.
Unas expectativas y responsabilidades de recordar. Les voy a dar un resumen sobre lo que acaba de hablar el señor Hansen. Siempre mantenga los Chromebooks de los estudiantes dentro de las bolsas exclusivas que les hemos dado. Siempre lleven el cargador del estudiante A y de la escuela dentro de su bolsa. Los Chromebooks son casi un año nuevo, y entendemos que la batería a lo mejor se puede descargar. Nada más de tener en cuenta que usando esas bolsas es importante de no prestar el cargador a los amigos. Siempre deje el Chromebook en un lugar seguro cuando no esté en uso. Algo que también habló, dio una sugerencia a los padres, es de lo que hace él mismo con sus hijas, de tener el cargador en un lugar seguro, donde se están cargando los Chromebooks en casa, para que sepan dónde están en la mañana, para que no vayan a andar buscándolos cada mañana. Nada más una sugerencia, un recordatorio. Nunca comparte las contraseñas de inicio de sesión con los amigos, y las manipulaciones o modificaciones están estrictamente prohibidas.
And a lot of times when we follow these specific expectations and responsibilities, not only it makes our students have their devices, they're always ensure that they're charged or ready to go. That's not going to affect their instruction that's happening in the classroom, and it continues the flow of education that's happening. So these rules and expectations are very important for our students to follow, and it makes for a fantastic school year, and every day very predictable for their classrooms with their devices. All right, so as we focus on academics, obviously the devices are first and foremost for our student academics, and be able to communicate with their staff, or not only student communications, but also being able to teach it out, to be able to learn utilizing this tool, right? So it's a vehicle for learning. And as we utilize our Chromebooks, our students are connected to their learning management system, which is our Google Classroom. They use Google Workspace as their office resources, such as using Google Docs, Drive, all the calendar, Gmail, everything that's built into that Office suite through Google. There's other resources that we use, such as Imagine Learning, and a significant amount of engaging and collaborative resources that are built into our staff, our student instruction. Student communications are driven through here, so our students have the ability to communicate with their teacher through multiple different platforms, whether through email, whether through our Power Teacher or their student portal with PowerSchool, whether through being able to communicate through their learning management system as well. So there's different avenues that our students have the ability to not only communicate with each other internally, but also obviously with our teachers as well. And then last but not least, it's essential that our students have their devices are charged and ready to go, because we have not only our instruction that's happening in the classroom, but we always have those regular assessments that happen, which just as an FYI, on next week, the students will be starting their fall STAR assessments.
Académicamente, vamos a hablar sobre, les voy a dar un resumen de lo que acaba de hablar el señor Hansen. Aquí puede ver algunos sistemas de manejo de aprendizaje en cual los estudiantes usan durante sus, de cada día a día. Usan Google Workspace, que esto les ayuda, les da acceso a diferentes documentos para que hagan sus tareas y proyectos en el salón de clase. También aquí tienen acceso a calendario y a sus correos electrónicos. Esto ayuda con la participación y colaboración entre ellos mismos, pero también con sus maestras y maestros. Vamos a hablar también sobre las comunicaciones de los estudiantes y los recursos que tienen para que los ayudan con la instrucción. Y luego también de nuevo nada más recordar que tienen que tener sus Chromebooks o los dispositivos cargados, porque vamos a empezar las evaluaciones. No nada más es importante para día a día que vienen a clase, pero también para empezar y asegurar que siga todo bien cuando empezamos las evaluaciones de los estudiantes.
All right. So these are things that are really beneficial for our families to really know as well. For all of our student devices for Chromebooks, regardless if they're at school or at home at the first grade through eighth grade that utilize Chromebooks, all students have GoGuardian applied to their accounts. So when they log into a Chrome browser, this GoGuardian extension is connected to it. So overall, it's our SIPA filter and monitoring management tool for our student devices. So when they leave the building, GoGuardians always continue to be connected to our students. This is beneficial not only to monitor student accounts and devices on our Chromebooks, but also it provides not only that content filter, smart alerts, and loss mode in the event that something like that happens. What's fantastic for our teachers, so that's fantastic that we have that as a safeguard, which is important in a one-to-one program. But in addition to that, it's also a classroom management tool and a way for our teachers not only to manage and monitor their classrooms, but also to communicate sometimes non-verbally. So our students have the ability to, it's not the fantastic picture, but imagine a classroom full of Chromebooks and you have a teacher there. The teacher will have the ability to monitor what's happening they'll run a session and they'll be able to monitor what's happening on all the student screens. And they have the ability not only to non-verbally redirect. So instead of affecting instruction or to verbally say something aloud, a teacher can and does have the ability to redirect students and manage student devices using GoGuardian, which is fantastic. In addition to this, if needed, a teacher can run a report, or we could run a report on student browsing. And it's good not only for a classroom management tool, but also an engagement tool, and just to be able to review anything if needed.
Como pueden ver, los estudiantes en el distrito 76 usamos GoGuardian para monitorear las cuentas y los dispositivos, los Chromebooks de los estudiantes. Y esto siempre está conectado con los estudiantes hasta cuando se lleven los Chromebooks a casa. Los maestros y las maestras tienen acceso de monitorear su salón de clase a través de las sesiones de GoGuardian en cuales los Chromebooks todos están conectados. Tienen la capacidad de redirigir a los estudiantes de forma no verbal y administrar los dispositivos de los estudiantes dentro de la clase. Por ejemplo, en vez de interrumpir una sesión de clase mientras están en clase los estudiantes y las maestras, ellas tienen acceso de redirigir a los estudiantes a donde pueden estar, y tienen acceso con GoGuardian a los Chromebooks de los estudiantes, y también si es necesario pueden obtener informes o reportes de navegación de los estudiantes, de nuevo si es necesario.
Okay. So I wouldn't focus too much on this because I believe a lot of our families are aware of it, but Google Classroom is our primary learning management system for our West Oak campus. And this is our area where our students are going to collaborate on classwork, discussions, assessments, anything driven from the classroom teacher through our students. And this is kind of a small little glance of like a screenshot of one of our fifth grade classrooms from last year, and just kind of like essentially letting you know what assignments are here, how to connect up, being able to, and having that classroom discourse within a safe environment. In addition to this, the reason why I want to share this for our parents is there is a guardian access to student progress when a teacher invites you as a guardian to their Google Classroom. So one of the things that we want to ensure for all of our staff is that our teachers is that they're linking up parent email to guardian access so that our families can receive information about our student progress in one avenue that we'll provide. Another avenue would be our PowerSchool parent portal, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. And then in the event, this is the benefit of a one-to-one, which is great as well. In the event that guardian access, being able to view your student progress is not, you would want to learn a little bit more. Your student could open up their Chromebook right in front of you, be able to open up Google Classroom, and you could see everything that's happening, not only their assignments, their discussions, their assessments, anything that's driven from the classroom. So that's also a benefit for our families as well.
So Google Classroom es un sistema de manejo de aprendizaje en clase. Es un lugar donde los estudiantes pueden colaborar en sus trabajos de clases, debates y evaluaciones. Ellos ahí mismo pueden ver sus reportes, de nuevo sus tareas, pero también da acceso a los padres que vean el progreso del estudiante cuando lo invita el maestro a ustedes, a su estudiante, pero también, además de tener ese acceso, si están en casa, también les pueden decir a sus estudiantes, hey, ábreme tu Chromebook para enseñarme tus tareas, los proyectos que están haciendo, las calificaciones, de evaluaciones que tenemos. So también pueden acceder a través del Chromebook del estudiante mismo.
Awesome. All right, and the other end is PowerSchool. So one of the things that our students at the middle school, typically, our students have the access to the student portal for PowerSchool. And this is an online area where they can access anywhere, anytime. It's a web-based where they could see their grades, their previous grades, their scores, their attendance, their schedules, the school bulletin, and much more. So that's helpful, very specifically targeted also for our middle school, because they have so many different classes and different courses that they're collecting, and you get different teacher perspectives as opposed to a homeroom classroom for our third, fourth, and fifth. However, for all of our families, we have opened up the parent portal as well. And this is that letter that you may have received a residency fair with inside your folder that gave you your access codes. And it's kind of a screenshot here, but on our PowerSchool access page that we have off of our parents and community, we have resources for our families, not only how to create a parent account, how to add your student access codes so that you could log into the parent portal and view the same thing, to view your students' progress, to view their attendance, their school bulletin, and more as well. One thing that we'll be adding to here as well, which is when it comes to viewing your students' your students' progress, their grades, is that the frequency, each building, Diamond Lake, West Oak Intermediate, in middle school, will have a different frequency of how often those grades will be updated. And when we have that information, it will be posted on our PowerSchool access page as well. Then this kind of gives some guidance for families on how often those grades are updated as well. So once again, there's multiple different avenues that our students are communicating through the one-to-one program with our teachers, and also for our families to be able to view student progress.
So para los estudiantes de la secundaria, PowerSchool es el portal que usan donde pueden, es la parte web donde los estudiantes pueden iniciar sesiones de clases, pero también ver sus calificaciones, las tareas, puntajes, asistencia, horarios, boletines escolares y más. PowerSchool para los padres, es un portal en línea, que es algo que tenemos nuevo, es un portal para padres en línea en cualquier parte de la web donde los padres pueden iniciar una sesión y ver a todos los hijos o todos los estudiantes que tienen en nuestro distrito en un solo lugar. Pueden ver las calificaciones, las tareas, los puntajes, asistencia, horarios. Y esto fue información que fue dada en nuestra feria de residencia. Lo que están aprendiendo hoy también es que dependiendo de nivel de grado o de edificio escolar, las calificaciones van a estar comunicadas diferentes tiempos, o sea, algo que tienen que tomar en mente también, que dependiendo del edificio escolar, pueden comunicar las maestras sus grados diferentemente que otros.
All right. So one of the things that I thought about when we were providing this presentation for tonight is what are common frequently asked questions. And it's nice to be able to see this because if you're joining us tonight, you get this verbally and we have a Q&A at the end, which is fantastic. But in addition to that, if you are going to be watching this or you know somebody that didn't get a chance to meet tonight, we could address a lot of typical questions that a one-to-one program would typically have and some answers to be able to provide you as well. So first, what device does my student receive and for how long? It's all of our students in our one-to-one program. So right now we're focusing on the kids that are taking the devices to and from school. So that'd be our 3rd through 8th grade. Those students receive a Chromebook, a bag and charger at the start of every school year. And I mentioned today that the date, so yesterday was 5th through 8th, and then our 3rd and 4th will be in September. They'll be taking them home, but they have them already at school. And all these items, all 3 items are collected prior to the summer. So for servicing preparation of the upcoming school year, we do that every year at the start of the year and at the end of the year. The only time that has changed was during the pandemic, which was a different time. But right now we kind of went back to our common protocols. Is there a content filter? Like I mentioned, all student devices have content filtering and monitoring through GoGuardian, which we shared a little bit about. What does district management mean? Students, Chromebooks is enrolled in the district Google Chrome management system, our console. So the district can push out networking accessing policies, filter web content, manage apps and extensions. And additionally, students cannot log into the Chromebook with a personal account. So as I mentioned, it's a school district issued device. It's not our student's device. It's a device that has like a book, but a lot more powerful to our students. So we manage those devices specifically. We always are continuing to update our practices to always ensure that the devices are optimal for learning as well as safe for our students. And can my students share or communicate with anyone? They can internally, but they cannot externally. So students cannot share files or communicate with non@dis76.org accounts. So essentially within the bubble, the safe area of our domain, that's at dis76.org. So that's our teachers and that's our students. That's as far as they could communicate outwards using our student accounts.
Algunas preguntas comunes que hemos recibido, ¿qué dispositivo recibe mi estudiante y por cuánto tiempo? Ahora, el día de hoy compartimos con ustedes que los estudiantes de 5º a 8º grado se llevaron sus Chromebooks a casa ayer y los estudiantes de 3er y 4º grado comenzarán a llevar sus Chromebooks a casa el lunes 19 de septiembre. Otras preguntas ¿hay un filtro de contenido para mi estudiante? Sorry,
I just clicked the button. I apologize.
Good. I think it was the
I
other
cycled
one.
too far. I'm so sorry. This is what happens. You go a little too much. There you go.
Okay, we're good. Hay un filtro de contenido para mi estudiante. Todos los dispositivos o los Chromebooks de los estudiantes están filtrados y monitoreados de contenido a través de GoGuardian, como hablamos hoy. ¿Qué significa administrado por el distrito? Esto significa que los Chromebooks de los estudiantes están inscritos de administración de Google del distrito. El distrito puede impulsar políticas de acceso a las redes en cualquier los estudiantes inician una sesión, filtrar el contenido web y pueden administrar aplicaciones y extensiones. Adicionalmente, el estudiante no puede iniciar una sesión en su Chromebook con una cuenta personal. Tiene que ser usada de parte del distrito. Otra pregunta que hemos recibido, ¿puede mi estudiante compartir o comunicarse con alguien fuera del distrito? Y la respuesta es no, los estudiantes solamente pueden compartir archivos o comunicarse con personas internamente dentro de nuestras escuelas. No pueden comunicarse con cuentas que no terminen con @distrito76.org.
All right. And additional, so a few more additional common questions you would typically see is there accidental damage covered? So student accidental damage is covered with student fees. So the only difference is the exception of a lost device charger. So a loss of a device or charger or deliberate destruction. So that's very interesting on that last area. But like say if a student has lost a device or charger, that is not counted. So that is something that would be issued a fee to be able to replace those items. Or if there is something circumstance where there was some sort of issue where a student deliberately destroyed the device. And we haven't seen many of those, which is great, but that does exist in the world. What if a student needs technical support? So technical support is handled internally through the teachers communicating with the technology department. So essentially, if there's any sort of issue, so things do happen, such as like if a key popped off the device or something was happening with their device needed some sort of technical support, it won't be driven through families to the technical department. So essentially, as long as the teacher conveys that information with their teacher, we'll have a tech ticket, and we have a process involved to ensure that your student's device gets serviced. And that leads into this next one is, what if my student's device Chromebook needs servicing? So there's different avenues on how that looks. But one of the ways we do, because sometimes the servicing could be something super quick or something that's extensive and it's very unique. So when that does happen, students will be issued a temporary loaner Chromebook during that time of servicing. Servicing experiences vary, resulting in whether it's an on-premise loaner or take-home. So say if it's something really quick, they might just be using the in-building loaner that they have. They have a loaner locker that's in the front office, as well as each classroom has a loaner that stays in class in the event that something like that happens. We definitely don't want to advertise that, hey, we have loaners and we want to use that. We want to focus a lot on that responsibility that we're talking about at our opening slide, which is we want to make sure our students are bringing their devices to and from school on a regular basis charged. But we do have protocols and plans when it comes to something like this. And then what if a student left their Chromebook at home? So as I mentioned, we do have a classroom loaner that could be used, as well as a checkout one from the front office if it's available. So we have a limited supply that's in the front office to do so. As always too, if the availability is there, and for some reason they have left the device home, there's nothing wrong with being able to communicate home to be able to have it dropped off. But everybody's lives are very different, so I'm unaware if that is always possible, but if it is, that's the desired outcome as always. But we do have a plan in place if and when something like this does happen.
Seguimos con nuestras preguntas comunes. ¿Está cubierto el daño accidental? Los daños accidentales de los estudiantes están cubiertos con las tarifas de los estudiantes que pagan al principio del año, con la excepción de la pérdida de los Chromebooks o el cargador o una destrucción que no fue accidente. ¿Qué sucede si mi estudiante necesita apoyo técnico? El apoyo técnico se maneja internamente a través de los maestros y maestras que se comunican con el departamento de tecnología. ¿Qué sucede si el Chromebook de mi estudiante necesita servicio? A los estudiantes se les entrega un Chromebook de préstamo temporal que tienen las maestras y maestros dentro de sus salones de clase. Cada salón tiene su préstamo temporal, pero de nuevo nos queremos enfocar en la responsabilidad que es recordarle a los estudiantes que traigan sus Chromebooks diariamente a la escuela y que estén cargados para evitar ese préstamo. O de nuevo nada más queremos enfocar que recuerden que los traigan cargados y que vengan listos para no interrumpir académicamente el aprendizaje. Las experiencias de servicio varían, lo que resulta en un préstamo mientras en la escuela o para llevar a la casa. ¿Qué pasa si mi estudiante deja su Chromebook en casa? De nuevo, los estudiantes usarán un Chromebook de préstamo que tenemos en las escuelas o en las oficinas, pero es la cantidad limitada. So de nuevo, solo recordatorio para todos que traigan sus Chromebooks cada día a las escuelas y cargadas.
Perfect. All right, so we're in our questions area of tonight's presentation. We did get a question midway through, and the question was, do students bring their devices to school every day? So yes, they do bring their devices every day. This is not a device that we're issued to stay at home. The responsibility of all of our children that receive their Chromebook, if they're 5th through 8th grade, they already have it right now, so make sure they bring that device to school tomorrow, because that's very important. And then it's our 3rd and 4th grade when they issue out their devices to start taking them home in September. They'll follow the same protocol, which is our students will take their device home and back to school each day. And that's we expect all of our students to utilize with our one-to-one program as our practice.
Una de las preguntas que recibimos es que si los estudiantes tienen que traer los Chromebooks de regreso a la escuela todos los días, y la respuesta es que sí. De nuevo, ayer los estudiantes de quinto a octavo grado recibieron sus Chromebooks, so mañana por favor de traerlas a la escuela o recordarle a los estudiantes que se las traigan a las escuelas. Y empezando el 19 de septiembre, los estudiantes de tercero de tercero a quinto grado, de tercero y cuarto grado recibirán sus Chromebooks.
If there's any questions that anybody has, they're more than welcome to use the Q&A section in Zoom, and we'll answer any kind of questions accordingly. While people are potentially maybe thinking about a question to ask, I do believe that Mr. Preble and Mr. Peterson, our principals at West Oak Intermediate and West Oak Middle School, are here. So if they have anything they would like to add, please feel free to chime in. I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. I would just add to it that if parents have any questions at any time, excuse me, please reach out to us directly and we can help with that.
I did receive a question. This is a great one. Where do we find our PowerSchool access ID and password for our child? So I'll answer this in two different lenses here. If we're talking about your student to be able to log into the student access, I believe our middle school, because that's predominantly it's used currently right now only there. But I believe a letter has been shared with the students this week and granting them access to be able to sign into the student portal. Now, regarding the parent portal, in the folder that was received at residency fair, there was a letter that gave you an access code to be able to do so. However, don't worry about that, because if you did not receive that, that's okay. I wanted to have this presentation tonight because we're going to talk a little bit about that. And in the upcoming week, we'll be sending very similar to what we do with our report cards. It'd be a secured document delivery email that'll be sent to you with pretty much a letter that gives you your student access codes and how to be able to sign in to the PowerSchool parent portal and be able to apply your kid to it so that you can sign in. So look out for that email because it's definitely going to be coming to you next week. Where do you find? Oh, I just did that. Great.
Tenemos aquí los directores de la escuela intermedia de West Oak y la escuela secundaria de West Oak también. El señor Preble compartió que si tienen preguntas individualmente, que ellos siempre están disponibles para hablar con ustedes, que se pueden poner en contacto con las escuelas. La pregunta fue sobre acceso de ID, de contraseña de PowerSchool. Como esto es normalmente nada más para los estudiantes de la secundaria, los estudiantes recibieron la comunicación con la información esta semana para que se puedan meter ellos dentro de PowerSchool. Para los padres se les dio la letra de cómo iniciar esa sesión de PowerSchool en la feria de residencia, pero de todos modos, si no la tienen o si no la recibieron, durante la próxima semana van a ver una comunicación segura que vamos a compartir, dándole instrucciones de cómo pueden iniciar y cómo iniciar esas sesiones y hacer sus contraseñas.
And if I could jump in here too, Mr. Hanson,
Yes, sir.
From the middle school side, some of the bigger things that we see is that, obviously, as you've touched on them already, is a lot, number of kids do forget to bring those each day. That's always something that's going on. We do have those loaners, but we don't really like to publicize that as much. But, obviously, we want kids to have that access as each one of their classes use these laptops a lot. So for them to be without that Chromebook, for even just for one day, they're really missing out on a lot. So, making sure that students bring their Chromebook every day, making sure that they're charged, and then just being able to access, PowerSchool, access their emails, their Google Drive is just really important too. So that's something that we've walked through to make sure that they're able to get into. We're going through that today, and we're also going to be doing that a little bit further tomorrow to get into PowerSchool.
Algo que compartió el director de la escuela secundaria, el señor Peterson, es nada más de nuevo enfocarnos en que recordar que los estudiantes traigan sus Chromebooks y que los Chromebooks estén cargados todos los días, porque como mencionamos, sí tenemos los Chromebooks que podemos prestárselos a los estudiantes, pero están limitados, pero queremos enfocarnos en la responsabilidad de los estudiantes de recordarse de traer los Chromebooks todos los días, porque no queremos que pierdan este tiempo de aprendizaje en sus salones de clase. Casi todas las clases de salón, cada clase en la escuela secundaria usa esos Chromebooks para tareas y proyectos. Y la última cosa que queremos es que caigan retrasados porque queremos que tengan todos ese acceso. Y sí tenemos los Chromebooks de préstamo, pero de nuevo para recordarles y estresarles a sus estudiantes la responsabilidad de traerlos todos los días y que estén cargados. Y es algo que hablaron con los estudiantes ayer y van a hablar también con ellos mañana y hasta el fin de semana, hasta el fin de esta semana.
While we're waiting, what I'd like to share with everybody, and like we do it after every parent university session, is we always have a page like this and it has a short survey. So because I'm not exactly sure how you're on a computer, on a phone, or however you're looking at this presentation, we do have a shortened URL to be able to take our survey, as well as you could scan this QR code. It's literally like 3 questions. It's very simple, and like just any sort of feedback for our first session and amongst many sessions. This always helps us out to know that if we're providing a quality session for you, as well as any sort of feedback for current or future sessions as well.
Mientras que esperamos, si tienen otras preguntas, los pueden escribir en el chat que tiene la función Zoom. Mientras esperamos, recordatorio que tenemos una encuesta corta. Aquí pueden tomar foto con su teléfono o pueden hacer clic en este enlace para una encuesta corta que solo es de 3 preguntas. Y eso es para asegurar que las presentaciones que estamos dando durante Universidad de Padres que están funcionando, que es algo que es información útil y para dar urgencias. De nuevo, solo es 3 preguntas.
And if you're unable to do that, it's totally understandable. When the session ends, I believe this will redirect right to that survey as well. That's what we've added with all our parent universities. So if you're unable to scan it or type a short URL in, it's all good. You could just wait until this closes, and I believe it should redirect to our survey, and you should be able to take it very short, I promise.
De nuevo, si ahorita no puede accesar este enlace, cuando terminamos esta sesión virtual, su sitio web lo va a llevar a la encuesta cuando cerramos esta reunión.
If there are no other questions, what I'd like to do is I'd like to thank Daisy Carrera, our community liaison, for translating today. I appreciate it. Mr. Preble, our principal at West Oak Intermediate, and our principal, Brandon Peterson at West Oak Middle School, for joining us tonight. And everybody that's joined us virtually, truthfully appreciated taking the time out to be able to connect up to learn a little bit about the one-to-one program. And if you're joining us on YouTube after the fact this is recorded, thank you for joining us and learning a little bit about this as well.
Muchas gracias a todos los padres que tomaron tiempo hoy para unirse con nosotros. Esta sesión también está grabada y va a estar en nuestro sitio web y en nuestra página de YouTube. Muchas gracias a todos por reunirse.
All right. I do not see
Bye,
any-
guys.
Oh, I don't see more questions. So everybody have a fantastic night, and I will see you tomorrow.
Thank you for being here. We'll see you.
All right, bye-bye.